This is Danny Flexon here for SecondsOut. Delighted to be joined by former world heavyweight champion Joseph Parker. Joseph, how are you?
I think I'm great. I think I'm good.
Glad to hear it. You've been in England for the last 4 months, you were telling me off camera. Just tell us the reasons behind that and where you've been staying.
I was here for camp. I was here in October for the camp leading into the Chisholm fight for December. And after the fight, New Zealand borders are closed. They're finally opening up this week. So my family and I can return this week or next week if we wanted to. But we based ourselves in Morecambe, where being able to train daily and join Tyson's camp for his upcoming fight, and hopefully I can lock something in soon for myself, so I can start my own camp with Andy Lee and the team, and look forward to a big fight.
Tell us a little, if you don't mind, about how the logistics work. So you obviously got Andy Lee as your head trainer. He's very close with Tyson and Sugar Hill Stewart. You all kind of work together, but how does it work on a day-to-day basis?
At the moment, there's no Sugar Hill and there's no Andy Lee. So at the moment, it's just Tyson and I training each day, running in the morning, boxing in the afternoon, strength and conditioning with Christian, and eating George Lockhart's food. So at the moment, we are boxing, but there's no real structure with the boxing in terms of technique and working on this and game plans. But I think when Sugar Hill gets here on Sunday, everything's going to start to formulate, and they're going to come up with a plan, and they're going to attack the next 7-8 weeks with a lot of hard work.
When you say boxing every day, are you doing much sparring together?
Not so much sparring, just body sparring and just punching the bag and staying fit and staying ready and staying sharp. And I think once Sugar gets here, everything's going to change. And if I lock in a fight, then Andy will get here, then things will change again for myself.
It's hard to think of, at least in recent times, 2 world top 10 heavyweights training alongside each other daily. What's that done for both of you?
I think what he says is that steel sharpens steel, is it? Or iron sharpens iron. Yeah, and when we're in the gym working together, we'll push each other, and I think it's a bit of a competition. Where if I'm doing something, he wants to do more. If he's doing something, I want to do more. And I've learned a lot, and he's been very generous to me in terms of letting me use the gym, giving me all the contacts he has, and just with his time. And I think I've grown in boxing physically and mentally, just being here and being with the environment that I'm in, with Andy Lee and Tyson, and there's Isaac Lowe, David Nahika, Tommy. There's a few other fighters in camp which we're working well together.
And we asked Sugar Hill before if you and Tyson could ever fight each other. He said he'd really be against it because of his relationship with Andy Lee. Presumably you and Tyson are very close now, so would it be a similar view on your part?
Yeah, I think Tyson was asked and he said we'll never fight. Same as me. I didn't think we'll ever fight, and I mean it'll be interesting, but I don't think it'll ever happen.
That means you've got to go a different route. He's obviously only got one of the belts at the moment, as much as he'd like to be undisputed. Does that mean you've got a keen eye on the Joshua Usyk rematch whenever that takes place?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts if you think about it. There's myself in the mix, there's Joe Joyce, there's Wilder, there's Ortiz, there's a lot of fighters in the mix, but there's Tyson and there's White fighting for the belt. Then there's Usyk and Joshua fighting for the belt. Then I think whoever wins those fights, those two will fight for the unification. So the belts are, I think, going to be held up at the top for a while. And as long as I place myself in a good position and be ready for when they become available, then that'll be good for me. But if Tyson becomes unified champion, then I'll say, Tyson, come on, vacate one, come on, let me fight for it.
And I know you're going to pick Tyson over White, of course, but what about Joshua and Usyk going at it again? Who do you fancy in that rematch?
Listen, I fancy Usyk. But it's great to see Joshua changing it up with his, training with a different trainer and still having his trainer involved and trying different things. So I think it'll be a different approach by him, but ultimately I feel Usyk will come out on top.
We spoke to Joe Joyce's management team around a month ago now. They said they'd reached out to your team about making a fight between the two of you, the top 2 WBO rated fighters at heavyweight. Can you tell us if that's close or?
Yeah, it's a fight that we're working on. It's pretty close to being locked in and going to happen, I think. I was just talking to Frank and we locked in a deal right now, but he's talking about different currency and I was talking about different currency, so we're going to go back and negotiate and see what we can come up with.
Do you think he really was talking about different currency, or has he kind of tried a little bait and switch on you there?
I think he thought we were talking about the currency, and I thought it was something else, and so we'll work on it and see. Yeah, thanks for joining board, and it's a fight that I think is a great fight. 2 Joes, and we're both highly ranked in the WBO. If it could be for the mandatory, even better. And I think it's a tough fight. You know, he's a tough fighter. You know, he's got height, reach, he's tough, got good engine. But I back myself that I can take care of business.
What does it say about you and Joe that you are so highly ranked, but you're willing to risk that ranking against each other?
It shows that we really want to get in there with the best and test ourselves. And I know there's a lot of fighters who are at the top who take this fight not as risky or this fight or not as challenging, but it just shows that we both back ourselves and we both want to be champion. And you know, the winner, may the best man win.
What do you make of Joe Joyce? I know you fancy yourself in the fight, as you should. What do you make of him as a fighter?
I think he's very tough and he's very game and he's done some great work in his career and his engine. He's just, you know, he's consistently, he just keeps going forward, applies pressure, and he does all the damage.
What are the kind of elements of your game that you're focusing on predominantly with Andy Lee, and how much of that did we see in the fight with Chisora?
I think spitefulness, backing myself and being a bit more aggressive instead of being defensive and trying to counterpunch. And then also just, you know, I feel like I back myself more and more each time I train with Andy, each time I have a camp when I'm here training with Tyson. So I think from that performance I had in December, I'm just going to improve and get better and build on that.
There's been a lot of conjecture about Derek Chisora's future since that fight. Would you like to see him retire, or do you think he's still got a lot more to offer?
I think he's a tough fight for a lot of the up-and-coming fighters. And even though, you know, I won the fight convincingly, he was still a danger. And he's, you know, there was times where he was in the corner and he would come back with this, come back with that. So you always have to be careful with a fighter like him. He never gives up.
Now, it's a question I've often asked Joe Joyce over the last year and a half, in that when you're so highly ranked, how do you keep testing yourself against top competition when the titles are tied up? How do you kind of strike that balance?
Against the top opposition?
Yeah, because the titles are tied up. You want to fight as good a people as possible to keep you sharp, but you don't want to risk your ranking too much. So how do you strike that balance?
If there's the higher risk, the higher the reward. You know, and if you're not willing to take risks in your career, then you're always going to stay at this level. And I guess if you step it up and you do well, then the reward's going to be a lot bigger. And if you back yourself, why not? I've been offered a few fights where take this fight, and then maybe you can fight for the world title, or maybe you can be in the position. But what's the point? There's a fight right there that I can take and get me into the position to be in. So listen, I'm up for the challenge.
What are the boxes kind of left to tick for you? I know you've obviously been WBO champion in the past. You're looking to win another world title, hopefully. What are the boxes left to tick before it's time to call it a day?
I'm 30 years old now, and I want to give it everything I have for the next 3 or 4 years. And as long as when I walk away from boxing, as long as I can say I gave it everything I had, and I gave it everything I have, and get some good results.
And we saw, particularly during the pandemic, you became something of a crossover figure, a bit of a king of memes, if you like, over that time. Are we going to see a bit more of that going forward? And is that something you embraced?
Yeah, you know, funny you mention it, because from doing those videos in lockdown and you know, encouraging others to be positive and spread a bit of joy and laughter, I was able to land a role in the movie. So I think I'm going to be doing it soon with a guy that lives here, Cullen, a good friend of mine. So I'm looking forward to doing that too.
That's awesome. Do you enjoy it? Because I'm guessing a lot of people outside of boxing who maybe didn't know of your achievements before now know who you are.
I enjoy it. I enjoy everything that I do. Sometimes it is out of your comfort zone, but you just have to embrace it all. If you're good at it, keep going. If you're not good at it, keep trying. And you never know. Opportunities do come with everything that you do.
And tell me, for you and your family, what are the best and the worst things about living in Morecambe in England?
The best things are just being together as a family. There's the trampoline place that we go to. There's parks. There's cafes. There's McDonald's. There's a lot of things that we do as a family. The worst part is just not being able to be back with family in New Zealand and being able to see them and them not seeing the kids grow. But as long as we're together as a family, we're very happy. I have a supportive wife, supportive kids. They're very young, but they're very supportive, and I'm very thankful to have a loving family.
And just the last one, I saw you talking to Isaac Lowe earlier. Now you spent quite a lot of time with him. Are you able to better understand the stuff he's tweeting about?
Isaac Lowe is a character, and he's a fun person to have in camp, and I still don't understand what he's tweeting about.
He's very articulate in person, but I just don't have a clue what he's talking about on Twitter.
In person, he's articulate, but yeah, on Twitter is a different story.
Brilliant. Joseph, really appreciate your time, and long may you stay in the UK. Cheers, man.